Well, a Christmas gift I was not expecting, at least this year, just arrived in my house. And this is War of the Ring. That's not War of the Ring, that's a cat. This is War of the Ring, Kings of Middle-earth. This is the third and presumably final expansion for War of the Ring 2nd Edition. This is something I've been waiting for a long time, given that the 2nd edition of War of the Ring, I think, came out in 2012, I think. So it's been almost 10 years. They originally promised 3 expansions for the game, and 2 of them have already come out. Lords of Middle-earth was the first one. In my opinion, that one is a must-use. We'll get the cat in the frame so you can be entertained by that. Lords of Middle-earth is a must-play. I think that is the best expansion for the game that has been released. It features Galadriel, Elrond, the 3 Elven Rings, Narya, Vilya, and Nenya, if I have that correct. I should have that correct. I'm a huge Lord of the Rings nerd. But it adds so much to the game that integrates really well with the core systems. And I think is sort of necessary for the full War of the Ring experience. The second expansion was Warriors of Middle-earth, and that added a whole bunch of new units for each side of the conflict. The Shadow player got spiders from Mirkwood. They got... what did they get? They got spiders from Mirkwood, Dunlendings, the Hill Tribes, and one other that I can't remember. And the Free Peoples player got eagles from the Misty Mountains, the Dead Men of Dunharrow, and the Shadow player got Corsairs from Umbar, and the Free Peoples player got the third one. I can't remember what it was. Anyways, that expansion I didn't like as much. It didn't fit as smoothly in with the rest of the game. It added a lot of overhead chrome for very little gain, in my opinion. It sort of frayed away the elegance of the War of the Ring design, and it adapted a lot of combat mechanics that were found in Battle of Five Armies, which is from the same designers, and results were mixed. I actually typically don't play with it now. I do think some of the new cards they added were interesting, but there's just sort of like an overwroughtness to the mechanics around the new units that makes combat kind of a chore. So I'm very excited to see what Kings of Middle-earth brings us, because it's kind of a hybrid of the 2 expansions that have come before, and it focuses, as you would imagine, on the Kings of Middle-earth. So let's open this up, and I'll show you what we get inside the box. So first of all, we get a sheet of counters. We have got the tokens for the 5 kings that are being added to this. So we've got Thranduil, I believe Dane, that's Thranduil, Dane, Éomer, Theoden, excuse me, Éomer, Theoden, and, this is right here, and Brand from Dale, and Denethor from, Theoden from, Rohan, and Denethor from Gondor, Thranduil from the Woodland Realm. So you're going to get this, and this pops out. This is going to be a new display that you put next to the map, or possibly put in the ocean region, since there's a lot of space there. And it's going to track the corruption levels of each of these 5 kings. So that's what this expansion is about. It's about Sauron's corruption of the sort of main figures of the different Middle-earth kingdoms, and how he was able to corrupt them, or potentially not corrupt them, to his will, as the War of the Ring, right before the War of the Ring started, or during the War of the Ring. So you're going to use this board off to the side. You'll see that there's the hunt tile symbol here, and what's going to happen, there's also some new hunt tiles, by the way, some special hunt tiles, and what's going to happen is that the Shadow player now has an additional option with his dice actions. He can sacrifice one of those dice if you roll a specific thing, to draw a hunt tile and put it secretly face down on the space for that particular lord, particular king. And the Free Peoples player is never going to be able to look at it, but the Shadow player will know. And once he accumulates enough Shadow points on on the hunt tiles to reach this value, then this leader becomes corrupted, meaning he becomes. There's basically two states for leaders. They either are awakened or corrupted, and so he's trying to corrupt these leaders, which prevents them from moving and does all sorts of stuff, because these 5 leaders, when they become awakened by the Free Peoples player, can be used as companions, so additional characters that they can move around the map, which is kind of cool. They all have combat abilities, so if you're fighting, for example, in Gondor, and Denethor has not been corrupted by Sauron, he provides some opportunities for in combat, I believe. We'll take a look at the cards in a second. Same with Theoden and Thranduil and so forth. So kind of a new wrinkle. You get a new map overlay for Helm's Deep, which turns it into, I believe, it looks like this turns it into a shadow fortress. So when you conquer Helm's Deep, potentially, it becomes victory points possible for the Free People's player, which is kind of interesting. And also what's interesting on this is if you own the Collector's Edition, you get the bigger version of these components. So a bigger map overlay, bigger Helm's Deep holding box, and bigger hunt tiles. So if you have the Collector's Edition, you can still get this. All right, what else do we have in here? We have got some minis, some base rings, and these represent if the one of the kings is corrupted. You will put these minis around the base of the figure to show that they have been corrupted. We also have some shadow minions, or they're new characters for the shadow player to use, and I forget what they're called, but we'll look at that in a second. Here's the rule book. So you've got Dark Chieftains. So you've got the Black Serpent, the Shadow of Mirkwood, which it's weird that they have that because isn't that just Sauron? And Ugluk, and then minis for the king. So there's some additional rules here. Rulers have special combat abilities. There's special hunt tiles. When you draw them, they actually don't count as corruption for the Kings of Middle-earth. So there's a chance that when you try and corrupt them, you actually don't. You fail. But they also can be drawn as hunt tiles. We've got the sovereigns. So here's what they are. Either corrupted or awakened. And then each of them has a card similar to the characters in War of the Ring with abilities and a combat ability if they have one. They've also contribute their leadership to combat and what nation they're in. And so they're going to function very much like the nations, so the politics of Middle-earth, where if you take a character who's from their nation and move him to that spot, you can then awaken these leaders. So think about Aragorn going to Theoden in Rohan and getting him to join the war effort, right? That's the system that we've got working here. The ruler tokens reflect, so they're kind of like the ring tokens in the game. You can use them for specific things, and once you use them, you give it to the shadow player. I believe these allow you to change the dice that come with this expansion to specific results. You have corruption level, which I talked about, and what happens when a corrupted sovereign is removed from play. They also have, I'll show you, there's Dark Chieftains, which we talked about. These are 3 new sort of sub-lieutenants for the shadow player. We'll have to see what their abilities are like. And then there's how you can integrate this expansion with other expansions. And also, what is really helpful, which I always get confused about every time I set up the game, is the card replacement. So every expansion has brought in substitute cards to replace from the original deck. So this gives you a manifest of which ones those will need to be, which is nice to keep them organized. This also came with a promo. So this came with the Seeing Stones promo. So these are 1 card for each deck for the Shadow and Free People's player, all around the Palantir. The Palantiri. So, for example, if you control Minas Tirith or Denethor is corrupted, you can use this event. There's also some battle effects for these cards, so that'll be nice to add to the deck. Just more cards is always better for this game. We got 2 player aids about the specific rules in this expansion. So you can see a little summary of how you can play these new characters, where they come into play, and what combat cards are useful for them, as well as their shadow resistance if they're a sovereign. Tells you how to use the new dice. So there's 2 of these. And then here are the 2 dice. There's some rules about how you use these dice. These get automatically added to the pool. And then if you're going to choose to use these, you have to get rid of one of your normal dice. They all have the same results on them, but these dice specifically can be used around all of the sovereigns that are in play. So that's what these are. And then we've got a pack of new cards. So I'm going to open this up along with the minis to give you a look at those. So here's a quick look at the minis that come with the game. We've got the 3 shadow characters. There's Ugluk. Here's the Darkness in Mirkwood, which looks pretty cool. I guess an embodiment of Sauron. And we've got this guy here, who I believe is the Chief of the Easterlings on horseback. Always good to see more horseback minis here. So, and then the other 5 are going to be your Sovereigns of Middle-earth. So we've got Dane, and we've got, who is that? Is that, maybe Theoden? And here's Denethor, it looks like. So, Thranduil. So, you've got 2 sets of those. You've got the gray ones that start the game, gray, and then if they become Free People's Companions, you'll sub them in for the silver ones, and if they become corrupted, you'll put a black disc beneath these. So that is, those are the minis that you get, which is quite nice. Okay, so here we have the cards, and these are the character cards, these are the new event cards, we'll look at those in a minute. Here is, you're going to get 2 versions of each of the 5 Sovereigns of Middle-earth. So you can see Brand, King of Dale, his special abilities. You can see that he gives you additional muster units for the men of the north if they are at war. And then you've got Brand, the corrupted ruler. So depending on whether they are awakened or they are corrupted, they're going to have different effects. You can see his stats go to 0 when he is corrupted, and also a penalty if he is corrupted to the Free People's player. So the Free People's player cannot recruit leaders or elite units of the North Nation except through event cards, which is pretty strong. And then in battle, if the North Army unit is in the battle after revealing combat cards, you may forfeit the effects of your combat card, meaning the combat card of the Shadow player, to cancel the effects of the combat card played by the Free People's player. So that's pretty cool. So it basically prevents the Men of the North from getting involved. So that's Brand, and you can see the great John Howe artwork on the backs of these. We've got Dane Ironfoot, corrupted Dane Ironfoot. Free People's player cannot recruit leaders or elite units in Erebor. Here's Denethor. Same here. It looks like all of the penalty events involve not being able to muster units of that nation. There's Theoden. Love the artwork. Yeah. And then we've got Thranduil, the king of the Woodland Realm. Wow. He allows you to move the fellowship, which is really cool, reducing the number of hunt dice. That's really neat. And he probably prevents you from recruiting, Woodland Realm units. And then we've got the 3 Shadow chieftains. So we've got the Black Serpent. He's the head of the Easterlings, I believe. Or the maybe it's the Southrons and Easterlings units. So if he's in battle, you can forfeit the effects of your combat card and inflict and apply 1 hit against your units to add 1 to all dice on your combat roll. Wow, that's really powerful. And if the combat card that you do this on is Relentless Assault, you get to add 2 to all your dice. That can be very powerful in the right circumstances when you're trying to take a stronghold to defeat a Free People's army who's standing in your way. It's really cool. Black Serpent of the Haradrim, it looks like. The Shadow of Mirkwood, which is an interesting choice. Lord of the Bats. I don't know if canonically there was sort of a leader in Mirkwood during the Siege of Dol Guldur, which was happening during War of the Ring off-screen. And here's Ugluk. He is the head of the Uruk-hai. Chieftain of the Uruk-hai. That's pretty cool. If Ugluk is in the region or in a region adjacent to the Fellowship, add 1 to all dice on your hunt reroll. Wow, that's extremely powerful. So if you can use the Uruk-hai leader to chase down the hobbits as they're trying to get to Mordor, that's pretty neat. So there's a lot of really cool new options for board presence outside the main conflict zones, it looks like. Usually the Siege of Lorien or the Siege of Dol Guldur, if the Free Peoples are playing well, or the battles in the north kind of become ancillary. So this provides some extra board presence for some of those sort of secondary nations outside the main conflict areas, which is neat. Here are the new cards. So some of these are going to be, so you can see here, this is a character, goes to the character deck. This is going to be number 25 of 24 because it comes from the expansion. So you're going to add these if you're playing with this expansion. Here's number 26. Here's another 25. That's kind of interesting. I wonder what that means. I wonder if you have to choose one of them. Another 26. That's also interesting. Here is... So this looks like a replacement. So card number 8 in the core deck. I think if you're playing... so if you're playing with this expansion, you're going to want to put this card into the deck and replace the core number 8. And the same is going to be true here of this one. And this one, I think these are going to be all the ones that were on the list that I showed you in the rulebook. Yeah, and then all of these effects are going to be related to this expansion. So it allows this expansion to be more fully integrated with the game. Looks like we have some of these as well for... the Shadow player. Yeah, it's interesting that there's 2 25s and 2 26s. I'm very curious about what that means. And then here's all the replacement cards. So, there's a lot to like about this, I feel like, because it kind of straddles the line between... sort of like too much going on with figures and units, but also... and sort of like the political impacts that Lords of Middle-earth had. So I'm very excited to get this to the table and play War of the Ring again with something new, something fresh with this expansion. And maybe I'll do an after-action report once I get it to the table. Anyways, thanks for watching.